Welcome to Globewise Entertainment, the channel where we explore the wildest, boldest, and most unforgettable stories in cinema. Today, we're traveling into the world of Italian sci-fi, a genre full of daring ideas, shocking visuals, and films that left audiences stunned. From futuristic nightmares to thought-provoking dramas, these 12 Italian sci-fi films proved that Italy could deliver science fiction unlike anything Hollywood ever imagined. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Globewise Entertainment so you don't miss any of our deep dives into hidden classics and shocking movie history. And let us know in the comments, which of these Italian sci-fi films shocked you the most? 1. Planet of the Vampires, 1965. When audiences stepped into theaters in 1965 to watch Planet of the Vampires, known in Italy as Terror nello Spazio, they weren't ready for what they were about to experience. Directed by the legendary Mario Bava, the master of Italian horror and Gothic atmosphere, this film blurred the line between science fiction and supernatural horror in a way that few had ever dared before. The story follows two interstellar ships answering a mysterious distress signal from an uncharted planet. But once the crews land, something chilling begins to happen. An unseen force takes control of their bodies, turning trusted crewmates into walking corpses, almost like space-bound vampires. The atmosphere is suffocating, foggy alien landscapes, eerie lighting, and tight leather suits that gave the movie its otherworldly style. What really shocked audiences wasn't just the story, it was the visuals. With a small budget, Bava created an alien world using colored gels, mirrors, and clever set design that would go on to influence the look of sci-fi cinema for decades. In fact, many film historians point out striking similarities between Planet of the Vampires and Ridley Scott's Alien, 1979. The derelict spaceship, the haunting planet, and even the idea of parasitic alien forces, Bava had put them on screen more than a decade earlier. At the time, American audiences were stunned. Used to clean-cut space operas like Star Trek, this was something darker, more gothic, and deeply unsettling. It wasn't just another sci-fi adventure, it was a nightmare in space. While not a massive box office hit, it became a cult classic, shocking viewers with its blend of horror and science fiction and proving that Italian cinema could push boundaries far beyond Hollywood. Even today, Planet of the Vampires stands as one of the most stylish and terrifying Italian sci-fi films ever made, its legacy still echoing through the corridors of modern space horror. 2. Flashman, 1967. In 1967, Italian cinema tried to ride the superhero and sci-fi craze sweeping across Europe and the US, but what audiences got was something no one expected. Flashman, directed by Mino Loy, introduced a masked crusader straight out of a comic book fantasy, complete with capes, gadgets, and a flair for dramatic entrances. But unlike Marvel or DC's polished heroes, Flashman was a product of Italian pulp cinema. The film mixed spy thriller espionage with bizarre sci-fi twists, ray guns, secret labs, and villainous masterminds who felt like they belonged in a James Bond parody rather than a serious superhero adventure. What shocked audiences most wasn't just the over-the-top camp. It was the way the movie blurred the line between heroics and absurdity. The action scenes were flashy but chaotic, the villains were cartoonishly sinister, and the futuristic technology looked both imaginative and hilariously cheap. Yet that's exactly what gave Flashman its cult charm. Today, fans of retro cinema see Flashman as Italy's bold, if eccentric, attempt to fuse comic book sci-fi with Euro-spy cinema. It may not have had the budget or polish of Hollywood's superhero blockbusters, but it stands as a strange, fascinating relic of the 1960s space-age imagination. For many viewers, Flashman was less about taking superheroes seriously and more about reveling in the outrageous spectacle, and that's why it continues to shock, entertain, and confuse audiences to this day. 3. The Pumaman, 1970. Back in the late 1970s, Italian cinema had already found its groove in copying Hollywood blockbusters with a European twist, but the Pumaman took things to a whole new level of bizarre. Released in 1980, though produced in the late 70s, this film told the story of an American paleontologist who discovers he's the chosen descendant of Aztec gods, and that he has the powers of a puma. Yes, you heard that right. Flight, super strength, and cat-like reflexes, all thanks to ancient alien magic. What shocked audiences wasn't just the premise, it was the execution. The special effects looked more like school play harnesses than Hollywood stunt work, and the puma powers were hilariously portrayed with slow-motion leaps and obvious wirework. Yet, the movie had an odd charm, a mix of superhero fantasy, Aztec mythology, and Italian camp. Adding to the wildness, Donald Pleasance, famous for serious roles in Halloween and The Great Escape, played the villain. Seeing such a respected actor face off against a man in a cheap puma costume left audiences stunned. In Italy, viewers weren't sure whether to laugh, cheer, or walk out of the theater. Abroad, the film gained a cult reputation, especially after being mocked on Mystery Science Theater 3000. Today, the Pumaman lives on as one of the most unintentionally funny Italian sci-fi films ever made. It's shocking not because of gore or controversy, but because of how boldly it tried to blend Aztec mysticism, alien lore, and superhero tropes decades before Marvel. Audiences were left with one question: how did this movie even get made? And yet, that's the magic of Italian sci-fi cinema. It dared to try the unthinkable, even if the results were unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. 4. H2S, 1969. When you think of Italian cinema in the late 1960s, most people immediately picture the glamour of Fellini, the grit of spaghetti westerns, or the surrealism of Antonioni. But in 1969, one film emerged that shocked audiences with its bold mix of science fiction, counterculture rebellion, and biting political satire, H2S, directed by Roberto Faenza. The movie tells the story of a young student who wakes up in a futuristic, dystopian society dominated by authoritarian control. Here, individual freedom has been erased, creativity is outlawed, and even the smallest act of rebellion is punishable by death. Against this oppressive backdrop, the student falls in love, and together, they spark a doomed attempt at revolution. But H2S wasn't just another sci-fi flick. It was a razor-sharp reflection of Italy's own political climate during the late 60s, a time when youth movements were rising against conservative powers and state censorship was at its peak. Its imagery was surreal, its storytelling daring, and its message so provocative that the Italian government actually banned the film almost immediately after release. For decades, H2S became one of Italy's lost sci-fi gems, whispered about by cinephiles, rarely seen, and often compared to Orwell's 1984 mixed with the psychedelic visuals of the counterculture era. What shocked audiences most was how H2S mirrored real fears of government control, police crackdowns, and censorship. The visual style, dreamlike, chaotic, and rebellious, felt less like a movie and more like a manifesto. For many young Italians, it spoke directly to their frustrations, while for the authorities, it was seen as dangerous propaganda. Even today, watching H2S feels like unearthing a forgotten time capsule of 60s radical cinema. It's messy, experimental, and at times confusing, but that's exactly what makes it powerful. It represents a daring moment in Italian film history where science fiction wasn't just about aliens or spaceships, but about politics, freedom, and the human spirit's fight against control. For modern audiences, H2S stands as proof that sci-fi can be more than just entertainment. It can be rebellion captured on film. 5. Warrior of the Lost World, 1983. In the early 1980s, Italian filmmakers had a knack for taking Hollywood blockbusters and twisting them into something wild, strange, and unforgettable. One of the boldest examples came in 1983 with David Worth's Warrior of the Lost World, a film that mashed up the futuristic grid of Mad Max, the rebellion spirit of Star Wars, and a dash of spaghetti western flair, creating a cult oddity that shocked audiences with just how outrageous it was. The story follows a nameless, writer, played by Robert Ginty, roaming a post-apocalyptic wasteland on his futuristic talking motorcycle, simply known as Megaweapon. Yes, a motorcycle with a personality, sometimes sarcastic, sometimes heroic, that quickly stole the spotlight from the lead actor. Together, they face off against the Omega, a fascist dictatorship led by Donald Pleasance, whose chilling performance gave the movie a touch of eerie gravitas. What truly shocked audiences, however, wasn't just the recycled sci-fi tropes or the blatant borrowing from Hollywood hits, it was the over-the-top execution. The film veers from brutal action to campy comedy in seconds, with awkward dubbing, chaotic stunt sequences, and a synth-heavy soundtrack that only made things feel more surreal. Despite its flaws, or maybe because of them, Warrior of the Lost World became a midnight movie cult classic, beloved by fans of so bad it's good cinema. It even gained a second life when it was hilariously roasted on Mystery Science Theater 3000, exposing a new generation of viewers to its bizarre charm. For Italian cinema, this film symbolized the fearless ambition of the country's low-budget sci-fi movement. It shocked audiences not because it was groundbreaking, but because it showed just how far filmmakers were willing to go to ride the wave of global sci-fi mania, even if the results were messy, campy, and unforgettable. 6. Shocking Dark, 1989. Now here's a wild one. Shocking Dark, 1989. Also known internationally as Terminator 2 before James Cameron's lawyers swooped in. Directed by Bruno Mattei, this Italian cult classic wasn't just shocking in name, but in execution. On the surface, Shocking Dark looked like a straightforward ripoff of Hollywood sci-fi hits. It blended the futuristic, apocalyptic feel of the Terminator with the claustrophobic monster horror of Aliens. The result? A low-budget mashup so outrageous that it carved out its own legacy in the underground film circuit. Set in a polluted Venice of the future, the movie follows a group of soldiers and scientists investigating mysterious attacks in the city's canals. But instead of sleek cyborg assassins, what audiences got were slimy mutant creatures, machine gun shootouts, and over-the-top performances that pushed it firmly into so bad it's good territory. What truly shocked audiences wasn't just the blatant borrowing of ideas, but the brazen marketing. Posters boldly branded it Terminator 2, years before the real Terminator 2, Judgment Day, was released. Imagine buying a ticket expecting Arnold Schwarzenegger, and instead walking into mutant rubber suits, cheap explosions, and dialogue that made B-movie fans howl with laughter. Today, Shocking Dark stands as one of Italy's most infamous sci-fi knockoffs. It shocked viewers with its audacity, embarrassed distributors with lawsuits, and delighted cult cinema fans who embrace its chaotic energy. In many ways, the film proved that even the strangest copycat experiments can become unforgettable pieces of cinema history. 7. Encounters in the Deep, 1979. In the late 1970s, Italian cinema dove deep, literally, into the mysterious world of the ocean with Encounters in the Deep, Incontri con gli umanoidi del profondo. Riding the international wave of fascination with UFOs and paranormal mysteries, the film blended alien contact with the eerie secrets of the sea. The story follows a journalist investigating strange disappearances linked to an ancient underwater civilization. But instead of a straightforward alien invasion, the film took audiences on a surreal, dreamlike journey that mixed science fiction, conspiracy theories, and the era's obsession with the Bermuda Triangle. What shocked audiences most wasn't just the concept, it was the film's unsettling atmosphere. The alien beings were depicted as both fascinating and terrifying, blurring the line between enlightenment and doom. Viewers weren't given flashy space battles. Instead, they were submerged into a slow-burning, paranoid mystery that left many feeling unsettled. Italian filmmakers had a knack for turning limited budgets into wild cinematic experiences, and Encounters in the Deep was no exception. With its haunting visuals, bizarre pacing, and speculative themes, the movie became a cult classic for fans of Euro sci-fi oddities. Though overshadowed by Hollywood blockbusters of the same era, This film carved out its place in cinema history by daring to suggest that alien life might not come from the stars above, but from the depths below. 8. Spacemen, 1960. When Italian director Antonio Margheriti released Spacemen in 1960, audiences were not prepared for what they were about to see. Known internationally as Assignment: Outer Space, the film dared to imagine mankind's future among the stars at a time when the real-world space race was still in its infancy. Set in the year 2116, the movie follows a journalist who boards an interplanetary patrol ship. What starts as a routine mission suddenly transforms into a desperate battle to save Earth when a runaway space station threatens to plunge into the atmosphere and ignite a global catastrophe. What shocked audiences wasn't just the storyline, it was the ambition. Italian cinema was famous for sword and sandal epics, not futuristic space adventures. Yet Spacemen featured sleek rocket ships, intergalactic battles, and the haunting image of astronauts adrift in the void. For many European viewers, this was their very first glimpse of what space exploration could look like on the big screen. Though critics in America dismissed it as cheesy or low budget, the film had an undeniable charm. Its eerie visuals, pulpy melodrama, and dramatic tension influenced the wave of European sci-fi that followed, inspiring future cult classics and even paving the way for Margheriti's later works that would cement his reputation as a master of space opera cinema. For Italian audiences in 1960, Spacemen was more than just a movie, it was a dream of the future. At a time when satellites had barely reached orbit, the film dared to predict the dangers, hopes, and wonders of space travel. And for that reason, it became a cult treasure in the history of Italian science fiction. 9. The Mechanical Man, 1921. The world's first robot showdown. Long before Hollywood dreamed up Terminator or Transformers, Italian cinema gave the world something extraordinary in 1921, The Mechanical Man, L'Uomo Meccanico. Directed by André Dede, this silent-era marvel introduced audiences to one of the very first killer robots in film history, decades before the word sci-fi blockbuster even existed. The story followed a criminal mastermind who builds a massive, electrically powered robot to commit daring heists and terrorize the city. But here's the twist. Scientists soon create a second robot to stop it, leading to what many film historians call the first ever robot versus robot battle on screen. Imagine being in a theater in 1921, watching towering mechanical giants smash through buildings and streets. For audiences used to romantic dramas and historical epics, this was pure shock and wonder. Sadly, much of The Mechanical Man is lost to time. Only about 26 minutes of the original film survive, discovered in Brazil in the 1970s. Yet even in fragments, the movie still amazes with its groundbreaking visual effects and ambitious storytelling. It's not just an old curiosity, it's the ancestor of every cinematic robot showdown we've ever seen, from Pacific Rim to Iron Man. By mixing futuristic fantasy with crime thriller suspense, Italy shocked audiences a full century ago with a vision of mechanical warfare. The Mechanical Man proves that science fiction wasn't just born in Hollywood, it had deep, surprising roots in European cinema. 10. The Day the Sky Exploded, 1958. In 1958, Italian cinema boldly stepped into uncharted territory with The Day the Sky Exploded, often hailed as the very first Italian science fiction film. Audiences who walked into theaters expected a modest thriller. What they got instead was a haunting cosmic nightmare that felt far too real for the Cold War era. The story begins with the launch of the first manned rocket into space, a symbol of progress and human triumph. But in true sci-fi fashion, triumph quickly turned to terror. A miscalculation leads to the rocket's booster rockets exploding, and the fragments of an asteroid belt are sent hurtling toward Earth. Suddenly, the skies themselves became the enemy. What shocked audiences most wasn't just the destruction, it was the terrifying realism. Director Paolo Husch, with the help of pioneering special effects, stitched together actual stock footage of nuclear explosions, natural disasters, and real-world panic. Viewers weren't just watching fiction, they were staring into the very real possibility of humanity's extinction, something Cold War fears had already etched into people's minds. For Italians in 1958, this wasn't just entertainment. It was a mirror held up to an anxious generation caught between nuclear threats and the space race. And while the movie's budget was small, the impact was huge. Audiences left theaters shaken, whispering about whether such a cosmic catastrophe could really happen. Even today, The Day the Sky Exploded stands as a time capsule of an era when science fiction wasn't about aliens or monsters. It was about the terrifying reality of human ambition, space exploration, and the fragile balance of our world. The Day the Sky Exploded may feel dated by today's standards, but its raw mix of science fact and science fear left a permanent mark on Italian cinema. It proved that you don't need Hollywood's big budgets to terrify an audience, just the right story at the right time. 11. Star Odyssey, 1979. By the late 1970s, Italian filmmakers were riding high on the global sci-fi wave sparked by Star Wars. But when Star Odyssey hit screens in 1979, audiences were stunned, though not always in the way the filmmakers hoped. Directed by Alfonso Brescia, known for his ultra-low-budget space epics, Star Odyssey promised an intergalactic adventure with robots, alien empires, and dazzling star battles. What viewers actually got was a surreal, bargain-bin spectacle that mixed recycled costumes, toy store props, and even cardboard sets, yet somehow managed to deliver a bizarrely charming experience. The plot follows a band of rebels who unite to save Earth after it's literally sold in an intergalactic auction to an alien overlord. Instead of slick special effects, the film leaned heavily on painted backdrops, clunky laser fights, and robots made from sports equipment. It shocked audiences because it was released at a time when moviegoers expected Hollywood polish, yet Star Odyssey looked more like a late-night fever dream. And yet, that's exactly why it became unforgettable. Today, Star Odyssey has cult status among fans of so bad it's good cinema. Its unintentional comedy, wild creativity, and fearless attempt to replicate Star Wars without the budget make it a fascinating relic of Italian exploitation cinema. In many ways, it shocked audiences not just with its absurd execution, but with its sheer ambition to outdo Hollywood on pennies. Even now, fans revisit Star Odyssey as proof that Italian filmmakers never shied away from chasing big ideas, even if the results were outrageously strange. 12. Another End, 2023. In 2023, Italian cinema gave us Another End, a haunting, futuristic drama that isn't just science fiction, but an emotional roller coaster about grief, memory, and what it truly means to move on. Directed by Piero Messina, the film shocked audiences worldwide with its daring premise. A technology that allows people to transfer the consciousness of a loved one into another body after death. At its heart, Another End follows Sal, played by Gael Garcia Bernal, a grieving man who can't let go of his late partner. Through this radical procedure, he's given a chance to reconnect with her, except now she exists inside the body of another woman. What begins as a dreamlike reunion quickly unravels into a nightmare of blurred identity, emotional obsession, and the terrifying consequences of rewriting nature's rules. Audiences were left shaken not only by the disturbing ethical questions the movie raises, but also by its visually stunning, near-future Italy, a world at once familiar and eerily alien. The film combines sleek sci-fi design with deeply personal human tragedy, making it more intimate and unsettling than big-budget Hollywood blockbusters. Critics praised its boldness, but some viewers walked out unsettled, unable to handle its raw depiction of loss and the uncomfortable moral dilemmas it posed. It wasn't just another sci-fi experiment, it was a film that hit people in the gut, forcing them to ask, if you could bring someone back, would you? And at what cost? That's why Another End stands tall on this list. It wasn't just shocking, it was unforgettable. And there you have it, 12 Italian sci-fi films that truly shocked audiences and redefined what the genre could be. From haunting visions of the future to bold experiments that push the limits of imagination, Italian cinema has proven it can deliver science fiction with a unique and unforgettable twist. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to subscribe to Globewise Entertainment for more hidden gems, shocking true stories, and deep dives into the world of film. Now we'd love to hear from you. Which Italian sci-fi film on this list left the biggest impression on you? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, this is Globewise Entertainment, where the world of cinema comes alive.